We're not even out of week one, and Trump's immigration purge has begun. Is he only going after violent criminals? How should we respond? Let's talk about it, y'all. Middle America.
And you ain't black.
I don't know what I said.
The first time ever any...
What are you people?
We're Americans.
We are Americans indeed. My name is Vincent, and this is Middle America with Vin and Story, where we are not left wing, we're not right wing, we're just right. If you want to check us out and continue the conversation, you can check us out at facebook.com/America Middle, where you will get to meet all the famous people that frequent this very, very important YouTube channel, dear listener. Now, our channel is so important that you will see that the fascists in our government are trying to slow me down. You see this bit rate is all chippy and stuff, dear listener. Don't worry about it. Give it some time. We will be back to normal. Everything will be as it was. We will not be deterred. We will not be deterred. Okay, so as I said at the beginning of this show, Mr. Trump has made good or ill, however you want to interpret that. He has made good on his promise to deport illegal immigrants until such time as the rolls are cleared or whatever. We had a discussion about this yesterday because of the controversy on the Christian side, because there was a Christian lady that had the temerity, the unmitigated gall to ask Mr. Trump to be merciful to the immigrants. But now let's look at the practical side and the implementation side of it. And we are going to marshal our good friends over at TYT. And they're going to help us unravel this wonderful thing we call American justice. Here we go. Are deportations really targeting illegals? Let's check it out. This should be interesting. I wonder...
I just want to say that I'm so sorry. All my people are getting attacked. The children. I don't understand. I'm so sorry. I wish I could do something, but I can't. I don't know what to do. I'll try everything, I promise.
There you have an emotional Selena Gomez over Donald Trump.
That's pretty tough. Man. I mean, my heart goes out to her. I know that feeling when your folks are getting jammed up and it doesn't look like there's much you can really do about it. I guess for me, what I struggle with is the fact that we just went through 4 years of these kids in cages, these kids living in squalor. The vice president who was anointed the border czar, she famously didn't go down there. She said, "We've been to the border." Lester Holt said, "Yeah, but you haven't been to the border." I don't understand why leftists only have tears when Trump is doing something, but when the exact same thing is being done and worse by Biden, there doesn't seem to be any tears. I don't understand that. I really don't, because if you care about these people, which I mean, those, I'm assuming, because her last name is Gomez, I'm assuming that those are her people. She's got some Latina or maybe even straight up Mexican. I mean, I don't know, how she identifies. But I mean, obviously all of us can relate to concerned for your people, etc., etc. I just don't understand what drives people to tears when a Republican is doing it over and against when a Democrat is doing it. We saw the same exact behavior with AOC. AOC was famously crying over the kids in cages during the Trump administration, rightfully so, but didn't have those same tears for the same exact kind of crimes against humanity when Mr. Biden was in office. They didn't have I don't. The partisanship to me has gotten to such a level where these kinds of, I don't want to say outbursts, but displays of love and affection, which are always going to be a positive thing for marginalized people. But why are we not as broken up when a Democrat does it? I don't understand. We continue.
Immigration policies, especially as we're hearing more and more about the individuals who are being deported by ICE under Donald Trump. But there are some, including Democratic Alderman Raymond Lopez from Chicago, who argue the Trump administration is specifically targeting individuals who have been convicted of crimes and have been in the country illegally. In fact, take a listen to what he had to say.
They are stoking fear against the federal government because they want people to be afraid. They want people to be panicked, and they want to show desolate neighborhoods. When all Tom Homan has said is that he wants to focus on dangerous criminals so that they can come in and leave communities as quickly as possible. And it's truly a disservice to our residents to see the mayor and his allies whip people into hysteria simply for their own political benefit.
I gotta say, our media is brilliant at that. Neoliberal media is brilliant at that. Right-wing media is brilliant at that. I don't know if you guys remember this about 2 years ago. The right-wing media echo chamber successfully created a panic about critical race theory that really wasn't there, and mobilized a lot of people to engage with their schools in such a way as to ban history in general. So these things didn't happen in a vacuum, especially over here in Florida. It was a reaction to a manufactured issue called CRT being taught in public schools, and it created this giant panic among right-leaning white folk, and the practical result was books got banned, certain histories weren't being told, etc., etc. And on the left-wing side, I mean, honestly, a lot of the I do believe that okay, Wacky Tory says critical race theory is racist. So when we get done talking about this, maybe you can explain to me why you think critical race theory is racist. But on the left-wing side, I gotta tell you, the vast majority of the panic I hear about Donald Trump is a media-generated panic. We had millions and millions and millions of Americans terrified, not only of Mr. Trump, but of their Russian neighbors, due to the way in which our media reported not only Russia, but the case against Trump. I don't know if you understand this, but if you were an American, were victim to about a 6-year psychological operations effort relative to Mr. Trump, etc. So like, you had millions of people who believed that the president of the United States was an asset of Russia. I mean, we hear the term conspiracy theory all the time, but nobody ever talks about Russiagate being the craziest, most mainstream myth in history. So both sides are very, very good at ginning up the emotions of people. But the neoliberal side, particularly as it relates to immigration, has got to take the cake as far as performative behavior and as far as being almost completely mute when it's on the other side. What particular history was omitted? Yeah, so remember, you had a bunch of white kids going home and feeling bad about themselves because their forefathers were lecherous, murderous, covetous people. And they were taught that their forefathers were amazing and great. They were taught that Christopher Columbus was amazing and great. And then they started learning the truth about their ancestors. And then they came home and they were crying. And it was like, no white child should ever have to feel bad about who his parents are. And so those kinds of histories were whitewashed and sanewashed, or not even talked about in the state of Florida, at least, because we didn't want white children to feel uncomfortable about how they got to where they got to. We continue.
Now, again, that was a Democratic alderman in Chicago. His name is Raymond Lopez, and he's arguing, look, there's a lot of fear-mongering going on, and it's wrong. But is it true that Trump's administration is specifically targeting individuals who have committed other crimes in the country? Well, let's hear a little more from.
She has to say other crimes, right? Because in the logic, and I'm not saying this is right or wrong, I'm just saying it's a thing. In the logic of a lot of people on the right, and it's not just the right, because the country seems to be unified on this, the act of coming in here in an undocumented status is a criminal act. Like, technically, it is a criminal act. So when she talks about other crimes, she's saying, okay, let's concede that they've already committed a criminal act because they're here illegally, but have they done anything after that? And the reason she has to say that is because if you say, look, these are hardworking, good, innocent people, to a, not necessarily, I'm not going to say to a Republican, but to somebody who's concerned about our immigration policy, that's really not going to fly. We continue.
The alderman, and we'll get into more details about who's being deported.
I'm very thankful that Immigration and Customs Enforcement is being very transparent in who they are arresting, what the crimes that they were committing or accused of committing were, because I think it's important for people to see that they're not going into churches, schools, and hospitals to round up children or your grandparents, that they're actually going after very dangerous individuals.
Well, I mean, dangerous individuals can be at schools, and my problem is, when we had a problem with somebody back in the day, right? We knew where they went to school. We would wait outside, and then we would follow them, or they would wait for us and they would follow us, and whatever would happen would happen. Why does ICE need to go into a school as Paola is learning English? Why does the ICE operative need to go into the school, go into the class, snatch up Paola, the rest of the class never sees her again, and all those other kids who just saw that happen to their friend are supposed to just go on as if nothing happened? You don't think that's going to leave an indelible mark on the minds of these people? This is what happens when everything gets extreme. So Trump has a response about immigration. He does the Remain in Mexico thing. Here comes Biden. Biden gets rid of Remain in Mexico with an executive order, and then he deputizes Kamala Harris as the border czar, knowing full well that there was nothing she was going to be able to do to solve that problem. They let 11 million people in here, and some of those 11 million people started committing horrible, heinous acts of lawlessness. On top of the no cash bail, all the other stuff that are, I think, well-intentioned friends on the left created, you had an entire hellscape to the point where now you have people enthusiastically saying, get these people out of here. It is what it is. We continue. The only history I see omitted is that all races of people were enslaved at some point in their lineage. Yeah, no, that wasn't omitted. But things like redlining, which set up the white middle class at the expense of the black middle class, they went into that. But again, Wackator, when we're on subject, I'd love to engage you on your perspectives on CRT. We continue.
And I think that it's very difficult when you have the local fear-mongering machine in full effect, as we saw last week when Secret Service individuals went to a school and the Chicago Public Schools apparatus was quick to blame ICE as trying to raid the building. You know, you need to be transparent and you need to be clear about what's going on.
So he highlighted that story that broke last Friday where the school officials in an elementary school in Chicago claimed that ICE had they showed up. They were planning on deporting someone. Turns out that it was actually Secret Service that showed up to the school in order to investigate someone who had made a specific threat to a specific government official. They never entered the school, and in fact, they spoke to and identified themselves to the principal, who later did a press conference and made it seem like ICE showed up to do a raid. That was not the case.
Yeah, you guys, you just got to understand that when a lot of the emotionalism relative to this topic, a lot of that is theater. I think AOC taught us that pretty well when she did the whole crying thing. Rachel Maddow taught us that pretty well. She did the whole crying thing when she was doing the kids in cages stuff. And then when Biden did it and worse, they did nothing, they said nothing. It's just like Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz had no interest in the border during the Trump administration, but then when Biden came in and flubbed it up, all of a sudden he had all this interest in going to the border. So don't get it confused. Anybody that pretends at the political level that to care about these people, 9 out of 10 of them really don't. A lot of this is just using the suffering of very vulnerable people and pulling on the heartstrings of the American populace in order to convert that into political power, full stop. If you believe that AOC and the rest of these people actually cared about the treatments of these migrants and these asylum seekers, then they would have been just as emotional, and one could argue more emotional about it. But they weren't. They were mute, because you'd have to say that, at least you could say, well, it was Trump, and Trump is evil, he's a Nazi, and look at the way he's treating these people. It proves our theory of the case. But then, when it's your people that do it, you should be even more angry, right? Like people say, Vian, how come you don't talk about the sexual assaults that teachers do to students and that coaches do to their players? And I say, because I'm a Christian. And our crew is the one that's saying that we represent God on the earth and we represent Jesus Christ and that we have the eternal message and we're carrying spiritual authority in the world. And so when we do something, we have to call it out worse than the people that are against us. Because as Paul said, if we had judged ourselves, we would not be judged along with the world. So I'm always going to be tougher on my group than the other group. And so if you're a Democrat, you should have been beside yourself with grief seeing the kids in cages and all the other stuff. But AOC and Rachel Maddow and the rest of them were all cried out. And all my leftist friends, my well-intentioned leftist friends, they were also cried out and keyed out from talking about that when the Biden administration did it. They talked about it every 4 seconds when Trump did it, but then when Biden did it, they had very little to say. We continue. What's up, Christian Hart? Good to see you, baby.
And that does instill fear in people, especially in Chicago. So it's important to be accurate about what's really going on. But Selena Gomez has since taken that video down after posting it on social media. I don't know if it's because she realized that she was wrong or if she was getting so much backlash that she just wanted to take herself out of the conversation. But
I don't know what she was wrong about, though. When Anna says she realized she was wrong, I don't know what that's about. People are being excised from the country. I mean, that really is happening. Big T Bariatric says Obama built the cages, but they didn't care until Trump was in office. Yeah, it's true, and I don't know if you guys remember this, but when you would tell your left-wing friends, you'd say, "Yeah, man, that's really inhumane what Trump is doing." But why the hell did Biden Biden and Obama built them cages though? And the response was always, "That's whataboutism." That's what we were told. That's whataboutism. That's what they said. All right, we continue.
Got more details on who's being deported in just a moment. Cenk, I want to get your thoughts first.
Yeah, so 2 things on this. One is the policy and the substance, and the other is the politics and the strategy, right? So on the substance here, these are not raids. Those will probably come later, but that's not what this is. So they're going to pick up specific undocumented immigrants who were convicted felons. Now, that doesn't mean that they only got convicted felons. So my issue here is that they're picking up people that they're calling collaterals that are also undocumented immigrants but did not commit a crime. I'm never.
I actually want to see that. No disrespect to Cenk, but if anybody has this term collaterals relative to undocumented immigrants who have not committed a crime, right? Like collateral damage is you dropped a bomb and the intended target was Anwar al-Awlaki, and you also killed his grandmother, his mother-in-law, etc. You had no desire to target those people. They just happened to be around when you bombed, Anwar al-Awlaki. That's not what's happening here, because what they're saying is the law has already been broken, and so we are targeting you if you broke the law. It's just that we are targeting the murderers and the sexual assaulters first. I think that's the logic. I'm not sure.
We're in favor of collateral damage, so I don't think that's the right way to go. But they're not going to listen to me, and they won the election, so they're going to keep on doing this. So in terms of when to start crying like Selena Gomez, save it for the mass deportations when we have to rally the whole American people to our side to prevent it. But when you do it, when they're picking up convicted felons, you're gonna lose the American people. So don't do that. As Anna's about to tell you, we're already losing them. I don't wanna lose them anymore before we get to the actual problem.
No, we lost them. I wanna be.
So it looks like Cenk is against deporting all illegals, and he feels that America turned a corner, and I think this explains a lot of Cenk's turn. Anna's turn to me seemed to be more organic and more personal. Cenk's turn seems to be more of a pragmatic approach. I think the minute Cenk saw that Trump won the popular vote, and I think rightly deduced that you've got to be more centrist at some level. You cannot be this extreme, yes, I want to bring them in here. I want to bring everybody in here. Let's pay for trans Medicare. Let's look the other way with violent criminals. Let's let the dudes in Venezuela go ahead and try to start claiming blocks over in Chicago. It's just a bunch of black kids over there anyway. Like, I'm with Anna here. I think that they've really lost the country because, look, it doesn't take much for good people to turn against their neighbors, okay? It doesn't really take a lot. And so, I just have to say, the extreme way in which immigration, and quite frankly, irresponsible way in which immigration was handled by the previous administration made folks way more amenable to mass deportations than before. I don't know if you remember this, but everybody was crying along with AOC and Rachel Maddow. Not about 5-6 years ago. We all were. You know what else got shut down due to Mr. Biden? The Me Too movement also got shut down due to Mr. Biden. Y'all don't remember that? We continue.
Be very clear that when I was talking about Venezuelan gang members, that was specifically meant to make a point about how the Democratic Party, which was in charge at the time, needed to do something about that. Otherwise, Americans are gonna be ready to throw the baby out with the bathwater. And that's exactly what's happening here.
Exactly
so in
what happened.
2016, public opinion polls showed that only 36% of Americans favored mass deportation, only 36%. Fast forward to today, let's look at the numbers. Well, New York Times came out with a poll, 56% of Americans in favor of mass deportations. Oh, well, that must be an outlier, right? Outlier poll, how could?
It's a New York Times poll. And you guys know the number has to be higher than that. I think the immigration number, you could make a really good case that the immigration number in polling functions very closely to the way that presidential polling goes, meaning there's about a 5 to 10% missing percentage points of people that are too embarrassed culturally to say, I want Trump. So they're not going to tell us, they're not going to vocalize it, but they're going to vote for it. And I think that that's exactly what's happening with immigration, man. I think a lot more people are sick and tired of it. The Lake and Riley stuff got through. The Venezuelan gang thing got through. I mean, it was just a complete disaster for the Democrats.
The number increased so much. Marquette, 64% of Americans in their poll indicated that they favor mass deportation. CBS
70.
News, 57%, ABC News, 56%. we have lost them already, because when you're unwilling to make a distinction between,
I mean, you guys know me. I'm a biblical borders guy, which means there really is no border policy. It's really open borders. It really, really is. It's like the Bible, the Old Testament has a basically open border warfare program, literally. Like, and so my logic was we cannot be less merciful as Americans than they were in the Old Testament. That was my logic. But good night. But what happened is we were not handling this situation responsibly. Mr. Biden did not handle the situation responsibly. Remaining in Mexico was a workable plan until we figured out something, systemic to solve this problem. And he got rid of it as soon as he got into office so that he could say he was undoing mean Daddy Trump. I mean, good night. We continue.
between people who are here illegally, who are committing crimes, who are running amok, with those who might be in the country illegally, but they've been here for a while, they're productive members of society and they're not hurting anyone. Well, all of a sudden, you're gonna have the majority of Americans think, well, Democrats aren't serious about keeping us safe, and now we don't trust them to deal with immigration. Now we want mass deportation.
60% of white people, they don't tell you that. I disagree. I disagree. As I said, Dwayne, the first time I heard about the Venezuelan gangs was not on Fox News. It was on Trenches News. And you guys can YouTube Trenches News right now. He's a down-home, thuggish, ruggish, jail time, been shot people, robbed people. That was his job, was robbing people in Chicago. That's when I found out about the Venezuelan gangs, because he was talking about how the GDs and the BDs, these are two rival gangs that are killing each other in broad daylight, have now combined together to go bang on the Venezuelans, okay? I heard that from way, way back. We played a city council meeting of Chicagoans. All of them were black, going crazy about this stuff. So it is not just white people who want these people out. Remember, they're not sending these people to Maui. They're not sending them to Camp David. They're sending them into black communities and Hispanic communities. And the Hispanics are way more aggressive about the border and border policy and articulating the border policy than white folks are by a country mile. It's not even close. Some of that has to do with the fact that you can't call them racist. They don't care. We continue.
Yeah. So there were Venezuelan gangs.
How do you reconcile wanting deportation with the Bible? At a certain point, opening the border becomes impractical. Well, I've said it very clearly that opening the border is impractical from a worldly sense. My thought process is it's a very, very complex situation, and I believe America has the greatest minds in the world. If we figured out AI and we figured out a cure for AIDS, which we essentially have, etc., I think we could all get together and figure it out, get into a room, leave the smartest people in the room for 50 days. They could emerge with a really, really good plan, okay? But right now, there is not enough moral and financial incentives to apply the Bible to how you would do the border policy. But there you go. We continue.
They were among the first rounded up in Denver. Now everybody admits that there were gangs, and they did take over apartment buildings. They never took over a city, and nobody other than I guess Trump might have said they took over the city, but that was outrageous and ridiculous. No one serious said that. So, but when you...
Yeah, but they were taking over apartment buildings, and it was all your friends on the left that were gaslighting us and saying it wasn't happening. Like, the left has a very abusive relationship with its constituency. Gaslighting is a form of abuse, right? And so when Anna Kasparian gets assaulted and says, hey, we got a crime problem, and the response is, no, you don't, be quiet, there's no crime problem. Hey, we got an immigration problem. Oh, there's no crisis at the border. There's no crisis. That's what they told us. And I don't know if it's like the hostility that the Democratic Party has for us, for the people that they're trying to vote for them, is mind-boggling to me. Just mind-boggling. We have videos of these dudes roving around, taking over buildings. We've got testimonies from people in the streets saying this stuff. And on come the Democrats on CNBC and all MSNBC or whatever, saying all this nonsense about, oh, it's all lies, it's all Trump lies.
Chose to fight on those grounds, you did great damage to our cause. Now mass deportation is more popular because people think that it might, we might be talking about those criminals. And so if we were recent, by the way, and then everybody always changes the goalposts. So now I see people saying, oh, no one thought.
No one denied that there were Venezuelan gang members.
No one denied that they were there. No one denied that they took over apartments, at least.
That's exactly.
They absolutely denied it, Jake. They absolutely denied it. I can show you the videos right now. As clever as we are, we've yet to figure out how to incentivize good. The threat of hell ain't cutting it anymore with the powers that be go out of their way to make life on earth a living hell. Well, the threat of hell was never the goal. If the threat of hell was the goal, then the Bible would say that the greatest commandment would be to avoid hell. But that's not the greatest commandment. The greatest commandment is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And the second is like it, to love your neighbor as yourself. But Bricktown, you got to understand that not every human being is equal in the sight of all the human beings in power in the United States of America. America has had a long history of always choosing a demographic of society that is allowable to dehumanize, enslave, and murder. Okay? So, a lot of what we're calling progress is really Americans repenting of our racism in our ethnocentric supremacy. But I don't think that we can pin the racist badge on a 35-year-old soccer mom with 2 kids who is scared to death that she's going to be the next Laken Riley. I don't think that those people are as horrible as they're being portrayed by other people.
What they said.
That's
exactly what they said.
And no one denied that they should be deported. That's not true. People are denying it right now, right? Let alone earlier.
It's insane.
So, guys, we've got to win them back. You have to. When you're losing the country, you lose. And roughly here, about 57% of Americans saying we want to deport all the undocumented immigrants. You've got to be able to stop that. And the way you stop that is winning the argument, winning back people on moral grounds, intellectual grounds, and by being right and not choosing to defend insane radical positions, right? So look.
Yeah, but as a secularist, Cenk, how can you possibly have right? You notice he's talking about right and wrong as if they're objective truths. Not only that they're objective truths, but objective truths that we can somehow discover and apply in life. Where does that come from, Cenk, from a secular perspective? In secularism, everybody has their own truth, and everybody's truth is just as valid as the next man's truth, right? So when you say it helps to be right, morally among other things, how could you possibly define what right is from an atheist framework? I know how to do it as a Christian. Everybody's an image bearer of God, and as such, how I treat my neighbor is the way that I treat God. But there is no reason to be, quote, right. There's not even a concept of a capital R right in secularism. So we continue.
If once they move on to the raids of just undocumented immigrants, they're going to start ripping families out of their neighborhoods, out of their houses, out of their churches, etc. If they go in that direction, my guess is and my hope is once people see it with their own eyes, it'll be really unpopular. That's the ground to fight on.
Right.
I don't know that it will be really unpopular. I think that Americans have seen in the last 2-3 years inflation go up, along with hundreds of billions of dollars being sent to Ukraine and another couple billions being sent to Israel. When Americans look at the Ukraine-Russia war, we're like, okay, we're over it. We've had enough of it. We look at the Israeli genocide. People are like, I don't want to be part of a genocide. These are not complex issues that people are looking at and can't figure out. They're pretty cut and dry.
So let's get to some more details. So Tom Homan, in multiple interviews, made it clear that they are specifically targeting individuals who have committed crimes. He says, my goal is to arrest as many public safety and national security threats as possible and move on to the other priorities. We're prioritizing criminal aliens. Now, ICE announced enhanced targeted operations in multiple cities. And you might notice a trend with the cities I'm about to list: Chicago, Atlanta, Puerto Rico, Colorado, Los Angeles, and Austin, Texas. Now, many of the cities that I listed happen to be sanctuary cities, and that's relevant because I think they're targeting these sanctuary cities to make a point about how if local authorities don't work with us, collaborate with us to help us deport individuals who have committed crimes, well, then we're gonna have issues with the collateral deportations. Individuals who haven't committed any other crime other than being in the country illegally, but since they are in the company of other migrants who have committed crimes, well, if they're in the same room, if they're in the same company, we're just gonna deport everyone, right, in that room. So according
you would have been able to make that dichotomy, no problem. Listen, if you would have just kept remaining in Mexico, if you'd have kept remaining in Mexico and come to the American people and say, listen, I've got 850,000 people that did this and this and this crime. You're gonna see them get carted out of here because we're not playing around with crime in America. You're a guest in our house. You don't come to somebody's house, break all their china, go in their bathroom, blow it up, and just walk around and lounge around like nothing's gonna happen to you, bro. Like, you gotta go. If Biden would have said that, we wouldn't be in this situation right now. But he didn't say that. He kept opening the border, and then he kept putting Kamala down there, who has no experience with stuff like this, and this is what we get. And now the people that are gonna pay the price are the Paulas and the Jose's who are desperately trying to learn the English language because nobody in their families ever graduated and all the rest of it. Americans still have a lot in our chest for people like that. And Americans still love that kind of story, no matter who it is. But the problem is that that kind of love and affection is a privilege afforded to a people who have a competent government. And I'm doing my best not to disrespect Mr. Biden, but he was not at the peak of his powers when he was our leader, and the few powers he had left, he used to put it all on Kamala Harris, which is exactly what happened. To this moment, you're not hearing Biden get any of the blame, really, for what happens over there. It's insane.
to ICE, let's go to this graphic. Nationwide, 956 people were arrested and 554 detainers were lodged Sunday, marking the highest total since the agency started deporting them on the platform. So far, overall, there have been 2,500 roughly deportations. And there were criminals detained in these operations. The DEA carried out a raid in Adams County, Colorado on Sunday morning that targeted a drug trafficking operation. 50 undocumented individuals were arrested, according to the DEA's Rocky Mountain Division. Here's what they said. In a post on X, the DEA announced that drugs, weapons, and cash were seized in the raid at what the DEA called a makeshift nightclub. They also claimed that dozens connected to the Tren de Aragua gang were there. Of the roughly 50 people taken into custody, the DEA said many have TDA affiliations. Others who have been arrested by ICE include a guy by the name of Jose Barco Chirnino, who's a Venezuelan national. He was taken into custody at Colorado's state prison in Cannon City. So what they're doing is they're also going to the prisons as these individuals are finishing up their sentences to deport them as soon as their sentence is over.
By the way, that's the right way to do it.
Yeah, I agree. But you can only do that if local authorities are willing to cooperate. If it's a sanctuary city, they're less likely to be willing to do that.
Right.
See, and this is, you know, I'm glad that Ian's in here because he's Al-Shabaab. Al-Shabaab is the way you speak of the youth. Okay, Al-Shabaab. Young people, and if you're watching this channel, I don't have to tell you this, but inshallah, this will mark the end of the this kind of politics, where you do something that's fundamentally and practically wrong, that's going to simply exacerbate an already massive problem, but you put a little fake band-aid around it so that you can get a little political point in spiking the football, but then you're leaving the fallout of that crazy decision to deal with 4 years later when you get reelected, or the next president, or the person who has to run in your stead after you've created all this damage. But you're doing it because you get to spike the football for this particular political issue. And so a lot of leftists like to hear the world is, we're all brothers and sisters, blah 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 blah. We love to hear that stuff, and we love the idea. Oh, let's look the other way. There's probably a really good reason this guy's a drug trafficker. There's probably a really good reason he robbed that person at gunpoint. It's probably a good reason that he killed that dude when he was carjacking him. You do that, and you push it to the extreme, and that white soccer mom's gonna say, okay. So hopefully in the next iteration, we can learn to be a lot more practical and not play politics with people's lives, because that's what we're doing here.
But a lot of the blue states are now saying, look, we're not going to cooperate with you if you're coming in to grab these folks.
Yeah, and I gotta tell you guys, all this tough guy posturing from these quote unquote sanctuary cities, you watch what happens. You watch. All this tough talk, these people have been coddled for the vast majority of their lives. They don't know how to suffer. They don't even have a definition of what suffering actually is. I mean, I'm gonna get between Trump and you know, I was watching some teachers, God bless them, little white lady. Well, this lady wasn't too little, but she basically threatened. You want to talk about white privilege? Let me shoot a video like that. She said, if those ICE agents come to my classroom to take one of my kids, one of us isn't getting out of the room. I said, Lord, please protect this lady. I didn't say that, but I should have said that. Please protect this lady, Lord, from her stupidity. We continue.
Off the streets, but if you are going to pick them up from the prison once they're released, we will let you do that.
And that's the right thing to do.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it'd be absurd to have the federal government come in to deport the people, but the local prison won't tell you when they're coming out. I mean, that would be yeah. So by the way, that's good. Blue states are doing the right thing there, saying, yeah, for sure, when they get out, we'll tell you, and you can come get them, so that you're not raiding churches or schools or homes, etc.
So that guy, Chirino, apparently had been convicted, not just charged, convicted of attempted murder, extreme indifference, and felony menacing with a real or simulated weapon. Then you have another individual, a Mexican national, who was convicted of sexual abuse of a minor. He was arrested by ICE in Seattle. In Miami, ICE arrested 6 undocumented immigrants from Guatemala who had been convicted of battery, child abuse, fraud, resisting arrest, DWI, trespassing, and vandalism. Please explain to me.
I mean, these are the people that she's crying over. I mean, good night, Selena. I mean, you're nice young lady, but them dudes would have jammed you up with the quickness if they would have saw you. What were you crying over? These are the people you was crying over?
That guy, Chirino, apparently had been convicted, not just charged, convicted of attempted murder, extreme indifference, and felony menacing with a real or simulated weapon. Then you have another individual, a Mexican national, who was convicted of sexual abuse of a minor. He was arrested by ICE in Seattle. In Miami, ICE arrested 6 undocumented immigrants from Guatemala who had been convicted of battery, child abuse, fraud, resisting arrest, DWI, trespassing, and vandalism. Please explain to me why we would want to keep these people in the country. Case. I'm super curious what the argument is, but my favorite guy is this individual who has 17 criminal convictions in the United States. Take a look at what he had to say.
I'm not going back to Haiti.
One of those threats is this illegal alien from Haiti. ICE says he's a gang member with 17 criminal convictions in recent years.
Trump, you feel me? Yo, Biden forever, bro. Thank Obama for everything that he did for me, bro.
I ain't going back to Haiti, nigga. I'm staying right here in this bitch. Shout out to Obama. Shout out to Biden. Hey, we gotta keep, hey, Brick, we gotta keep this man in the country, bro. By the way, Bricktown Media, Obama, yo.
ICE says he's a gang member with 17 criminal convictions in recent years.
Trump, you feel me? Yo, Biden forever, bro. Thank Obama for everything that he.
Not good. That's not a good look for Democrats.
What you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean? What's wrong? You know, the 17 convictions, Allahu Akbar. 17 convictions. And that's why Kamala would show up during that debate. Y'all remember, like, this guy's been, he's got 38 convictions, blah, 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 blah. Yo, Annika, it's not a good look for the Democrats. This man said Biden for life. I'm surprised he didn't throw up a little Biden gang sign. We continue. Oh my God. He said, shout out to my nigga Obama. Thank you for everything you did to me. Thank you. Thank you for letting me stay in this country, bro, and rack up 17 convictions. Not indictments, convictions. That means they brought this man to trial. He stood before a judge or a jury of his peers. And they said, nigga, you guilty 17 times. And it took so he was thinking Obama. That means he was doing all these crimes during the Obama administration. He missed the Trump dragnet, and then he went crazy during the Biden administration. And within a week, Trump had this man scooted out of there. Eating cats, all type of shit. I don't care, dear listener. This man had 17 fucking convictions. He was terrorizing this country. Shout out to my nigga Obama. Yo, we gotta see that again. I'm sorry, we gotta see it again. World star in this bitch. Oh, if you know, you know. Look at that. Fuck Trump, you feel me? Biden forever, bro. This dude has got to be a plant or something. Y'all lucky Story ain't here. It would have been over with. Y'all know if your sister was here, it would have been over with. This man said, I gotta shout out my you know, like in the Oscars when they get their, you know, oh, I'd like to thank God before everything.
Member with 17 criminal convictions in recent years.
Trump, you feel me? Yo, Biden forever, bro. Thank Obama for everything that he did for me, bro.
Not good. That's not a good look for Democrats.
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't do more damage to Biden and Obama if you tried.
And Obama actually, I mean, he's still known as the deporter in chief. Still, even compared to Donald Trump, Obama did far more deportations.
Yeah, but when I pointed that out, they told me it was whataboutism, Anna, so it don't count. It don't count.
I mean, if that moron thought he was helping the Democrats, I mean, it's almost like he's a Republican plant.
He's got
You've got a massive criminal saying how much he loves Biden and Obama. God, so anyways, guys, don't, at the same time, don't be too distracted by one rando, okay? So most of these folks don't give a damn about politics. All they care about is if they're in gangs or they're criminals carrying out those crimes for their own benefit.
I'm sorry, but I'm being serious here. I was in the Bronx, New York, okay? And I was not a criminal. Okay, I wasn't a criminal. I mean, there's a sense in which, you know, you commit 8 felonies a week or whatever. You know, there's that saying. When I say I wasn't a criminal, like, there were people that were like, this guy will steal anything. This guy will kill you. This guy, don't go in a dark alley with him if you're a female. Like everybody, and I'm telling you, the crooks, like the folks who did that as a living, like that's what they were known for, were absolutely plugged into politics and all the rest of it, and they knew how to manipulate it. Some of these criminals are brilliant at gaming the system. Like these are really intelligent people. So, I mean, hey, he probably did know what he was doing.
right? So overall, though, as these folks are being rounded up, one, I don't like the guy who arrested who's up on gun charges because he hasn't been convicted yet. And not only that, I want him, if he did do it, I want him convicted and serving his time here. I don't want him to just be released and be free in whichever country he goes to. I want him to serve time for his, for
his crime,
for his crimes
100%,
here.
yep.
The guy who is quote unquote collateral, that doesn't make any sense to me. I know that the Republicans want it. I know that they'll get it, but I don't like it. And again, like I said in the beginning.
Again, I haven't seen any quote Republican characterize it as collateral, and from a ROE perspective, you cannot look at those people as collateral because they are also in the criminal group by virtue of being undocumented, Cenk. So I don't know if that's a word that you came up with yourself, but again, like a lot of times, like this, and unfortunately, a lot of this has to do with the way that you guys framed this entire discussion. You guys framed this discussion as anybody who wants a pause or a moment of reflection on who's coming into our country. You guys said that anybody who thinks that way is a xenophobic racist. That's what y'all said. So when Biden went in there and he killed roommate in Mexico, and then he put the black Kamala Harris to be the border czar, he knew exactly what he was doing. And so now when we're talking about collaterals versus people who are violent offenders, that's not how it works. There are no collaterals here if you cross the border illegally. Now again, I'm the open borders guy. I am just dealing with the fact that these are laws that these people have to interact with, and our people are going to apply because you guys went too extreme. Like, I could go forever. There's so many topics where leftists were morally right on, and then because they have this idea that everybody has a valid truth, everybody got to put their little hat in the ring as to how civil rights and stuff were going to work for people, how immigrants' rights were going to work, et cetera, et cetera. And that is a recipe for disaster, especially when you're talking about community organization. There's got to be a definitive and an explicit leader who has a definitive and explicit agenda, and everybody who joins is about making sure that agenda comes to pass. That's how powerful groups who influence this country works. That's the reason that pro-lifers have been at war about this shit since 1973 and are making real steady headwinds, is because there's the organizational principle in there that does not exist right now on the left, because too many leftists believe that everybody should have an opinion. When I first got into the pro-life fight, I didn't know a damn thing, and I only got into it not because I was trying to help babies, but because they jammed up my friend. Okay, they jammed him up. He had to run from the police and all the rest of it, and it hurt me that happened to him while I wasn't there. So I went there for him. I didn't go there for the babies. It was later on that I started falling in love with the women and the babies and things like that, and I went for the right, the godly reason. But I can tell you, I've been in the activist circles on the left and activist circles on the right. There's absolutely no comparison, and a lot of it had to do with poor leadership, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that a lot of people on the left have great leadership talent, but they cannot lead because of their egalitarian worldview and the idea that anything having to do with hierarchy is bad. Now you're seeing the results of it. We continue.
I don't like anyone who's collateral damage. But overall, the politics.
Brick says, we almost had that leader. I'm assuming that you're referring to Bernard Sanders. I think Bernard Sanders is the most consistent politician we've ever had, but I also think he's the most selfish politician we've ever had, including the former president. People are going to say, why? Well, Bernie went out and started propping up Hillary Clinton after the DNC super delegated him out of the nomination. it was clear that Bernie was the popular choice, and they conspired against him, and it was very, very clear that they were using all the powers of the Democratic Party to suppress his movement. And instead of standing and fighting, he acquiesced, and then he started going out promoting those people. And I think he did that because he wanted to be accepted. He finally hit a wall. He was tired of the fight. And then he went and did the exact same thing to us in 2020. He endorsed Biden, said he was a decent person, no problem with the cognitive decline. Oh, that's all good. Okay, Bernie. Because he didn't want to deal with those headwinds. He didn't want to get attacked again because he'd already been through it. And that's a form of selfishness to me. And I blame him for a lot of why we are where we're at. And it's crazy because I was going to vote Democrat for the first time in my life when I saw that dude in that chair. And then when I saw him in Rogan, I'm like, I am definitely voting for this guy. And he has a horrible abortion policy, but we were so confident that we were going to abolish abortion in our lifetime. I was still ready to vote for Bernard Sanders. I really thought that in 2020, because of COVID, where you had a healthcare issue at a pandemic level that was affecting millions of people, that people could start seeing this whole, holy shit, healthcare is of vital importance to our country, and the lack of healthcare is one of the reasons why COVID spread like wildfire in America, because you don't have a lot of paid leave a lot of times for your illness, and if you're an able-bodied person, you're going to go into work, and even if you have a little sniffle, you're going to go into work, and you're going to go and infect everybody. And you guys remember what was happening during that period with Amazon and all the rest of it? It was freaking crazy. Shout out to Ben Wen. It's like you're asking the left to act against their own interests because organization. Why would the left support an organization that doesn't support them? No, I'm not saying that we want the left to destroy their own interests. What I am saying though is that hierarchy is necessary. It's a necessary function for every successful group of people. And the instinct to validate everybody's crazy idea is always going to be the poison pill for any leftist group that tries to go anywhere. Let me give you an example. Ben. Right now, right after the Trump victory and everything like that, and it was clear because he wasn't going door to door in Pennsylvania. He wasn't going door to door. Kamala Harris was going herself was going door to door. You know what everybody said? What did everybody say? We have to get a left-wing Joe Rogan. And of course, the answer to the whole we need to get a left-wing Joe Rogan is you did. His name was Joe Rogan. And he went out and endorsed Bernard Sanders. And what happened? What happened? I'll tell you what happened. What happened was a vast majority of people were excited. They said, oh my God, look, they retweeted the thing 1 trillion times. And then what happened? 2 people, I'm not going to name them, had a problem with his phobia and his racism. So Bernie, taking a cue from these 2 individuals, went and decried Joe Rogan's endorsement. And I'm watching Kyle Kalinske go crazy on Rogan, blah, 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 and he never talks about that moment. I'm sorry, but that is an example of leadership in the left going, well, what do you want? What do you want? What do you want? Your opinion's important. Your opinion's important. Their opinions were not important. They were millennials who didn't know anything and were hanging out on the internet. And you guys actively decried Joe Rogan. And then when he came and used his power and influence for Trump, who duly accepted it, now you guys are coming around complaining about the right-wing echo chamber and how badly you need Joe Rogan. It's ridiculous. They'll never learn. Now they're just talking about manufacturing a Joe Rogan. Oh, Hassan Piker. Hassan's going to be the next Joe Rogan. Stop! Hassan ain't going to be no next Joe Rogan. There is no next Joe Rogan. You had him. You lost him.
Of this is that so far
By the way, Vin, did you see Elon Musk speak at that speech at that German political rally? Actual Nazi talking points and encouraging monocultures. Well, I mean, yeah, but I think after the whole Ukraine thing, we're done with the whole Nazi stuff, right? I mean, we sent billions and billions of dollars to Nazis in Ukraine. And then we brought them over here at Disney World to honor them, and then they were Nazis too. Then the Canadians went and honored the guy. The guy was fucking, he was an SS soldier with Hitler. So, I mean, we've already been supporting Nazis now, so that's okay.
None of this is hurting Trump. This is probably helping Trump.
Yeah.
So don't fight on this hill.
His approval rating has increased since he got elected, actually. And
I just want you guys to hear that. I just want you guys to hear that. His approval rating increased. It's the highest it's ever been. After a week of pardoning all of the J6ers, including the ones that are on video, beating the hell out of police officers, tasing them in the neck, he got all those people off, and he's the most popular he's ever been. If that doesn't tell you how much of a leadership vacuum we have been in under the Biden administration, I don't know what else can. I'm sorry. It was just completely arrogant of Mr. Obama to believe that he was going to get us to put up another empty suit in there after Biden. It was just crazy. Absolutely crazy. We continue.
And the final thing that I'll note is, I just think it's so fascinating how the media frames deportations under Democratic leadership versus Republican leadership, right?
Okay, yeah.
Because the Trump administration so far has done about 2,500 deportations. But let's go to the graphic 5 here. In the last fiscal year, meaning when Biden was still in charge, ICE's enforcement and removal operations conducted 113,431 administrative arrests, according to an agency report, amounting to about 310 arrests a day across all field offices. I didn't see Selena Gomez crying about that because Selena Gomez didn't know about that. Because the media didn't make a big deal of it.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, okay? Thank you. This is what I'm talking about. Instead of going to their people and saying, listen, yes, there's a migrant problem. We've had to arrest 300 people a day. And then you can take that number and you can turn it and you could say, the reason that I had to tell you that we're jamming up 300 plus people a day is because for the most part, immigrants are awesome, okay? There's X million of them here. 300 a day is a pretty good ratio, but I want you guys to understand that we are going after people and we are jamming them up. We're just not gonna jam up Pedro who's at school working, blah, 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 blah. If you would have said that, no problem. I think you would have been able to secure those votes. But what did they do? They went with the stupid, simplistic narrative that anybody who wants deportations is a horrible, terrible racist. So even though they were doing deportations, they wouldn't talk about it. They wouldn't talk about it. Maddow wouldn't talk about it. None of them would talk about it because they had poured so many emotional eggs into that basket that then to come out and do the right and logical and rational thing would have been too much. So he didn't say anything about it. So now what we have is Selena Gomez is crying, AOC is crying, and Rachel Maddow's crying, everybody's crying about deportations and all this shit when Trump does it. But when a Democrat does it, they got nothing to say. Their eyes are bone dry, and that's because they never cared about those people. Never. Those people were convenient brown props to make Trump look bad so that you would vote for them because they assume about you two things. One of them is good, one of them is bad. The first is that you're a compassionate person because you're an American. That's what they assume. They said as soon as these Americans hear about this, they're going to lose themselves because this is how compassionate American people are. And then they said Americans are also gullible and dumb as hell. They're gullible and dumb as hell. So we're going to say that We're going to act as if this is the first time anybody has ever arrested or deported an undocumented individual, and we're going to pour all this invective, racist, blah, 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 and you don't want to be a racist, do you? You don't want to be a Nazi, do you? Hell no, you don't want to be a Nazi. So now you're going to go, that's right, let's free the immigrants, blah, 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 blah. See how that works? That's what happened. They put way too much emotional energy into that bucket in order for them to course correct. And that's what happens when you try to label anyone and everyone that disagrees with you, or anyone to the right or to the left of you, as Hitler, the Schutzstaffel, blah, 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 fascist, call them whatever you want. But what ends up happening is you now can't do the things that he's going to do, because then they're going to call you a fascist too. See how that works? Meanwhile, the American people are more and more and more and more upset about this shit. They're seeing Lakeland Riley, then they turn on the TV and they do not perceive Biden to be a powerful leader who has a plan to walk us out of here, and how to do it in a balanced way that recognizes the humanity of all these beautiful people, while simultaneously putting American citizens as primary, because we're in America. And because Biden and his entire party would not challenge us with that kind of a nuance, we end up with another set of unnuanced operators, and now you guys are seeing what's happening.
About it. But when it's Trump, they make a huge deal about it.
Yeah, and it's weird in both directions, right? Because people think that Biden did nothing in getting convicted felons deported, when he actually did a lot.
I mean, in the last year after it became a huge political liability.
But
yes.
nevertheless, like, so right now, the story was that Trump's ICE has a quota of 75 people deported a day. Well, that's 310 people a day. That wasn't a quota. They were actually doing it. They already did it, right? So on the one hand, the media is bad in that they make it seem like Trump is pure evil for doing this, and they don't even mention that Biden did it. On the other hand, that actually hurts Biden, because Biden did deport these people, and the press never really deported it.
See, this is the problem I have with Trump, with Trump, Cenk. Ed will go on these shows and be like, yeah, I used to say this, I used to say that, I was wrong, and it changed my mind. This changed my mind, that changed my mind, that changed my mind. Cenk talks as if he never changed his mind. The way that Cenk is talking right now, it's like he was just sounding the alarm about this thing the entire time, as if you also weren't saying that Trump was racist and xenophobic for having an immigration policy. What the hell, Cenk? Let me check out what Bricktown said, because I need some logic in my life after that. Well, allow me to play devil advocate. If the general population does in fact want illegals deported, and the Dems were doing it, isn't that them conceding to the right? Well, I would say that would not be the concession to the right. The concession to what I believe was conceded to the right was, because think about this. I grew up, I didn't grow up, but I was politically conscious during the Clinton administration. Bill Clinton's immigration policy was this immigration policy. It was the same policy, okay? So the immigration thing, Bernie Sanders famously talked about this. I think around 2008, 2016 time, where he said that not Soros, it was a Koch brothers idea that Democrats wanted as much illegals in as possible, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so the concession that I think was made by the left was to give that ground up to the right. That's the problem. It made the border and immigration a right-wing policy, because it was anything that Trump does, we're going to do the diametric opposite of. So Trump is reflecting in 2016 the citizenry's confusion about what's going on with you guys remember at the time ISIS was out there chopping people's heads off, all type of shit, and simultaneous to that, that's when he started talking about the Muslim ban and things of that nature. And it wasn't the Muslim ban. He was trying to ban countries that were overtly hostile to us and joining ISIS and the rest of the thing. But my point is, the Democratic Party in 2016 made an explicit decision that the way that we're going to demonstrate the antithesis between Trump and Hillary was that we were going to label him a Nazi, a xenophobe, a racist. We're going to say all those things and associate all of that with his desire for a secured border. That's what happened in 2016. Prior to that, everybody was on the same page. And you know that everybody was on the same page because the first thing Kamala Harris did as a vice president was get sent over to South America and stand up in front of those people and said, do not come. Don't come. That's what she said. So the real problem, what's up, Thea Ramsey? The real problem was giving that to Trump, giving the secure border thing to Trump, turning that into a MAGA problem. That is where the Dems screwed up. What they should have done, if I was a Democratic leader, I would have just played a bunch of Clinton and a bunch of Obama, and I'd have said, we know how to fix this. We didn't have a migrant crisis during Clinton. We didn't have a migrant crisis during Obama. We know how to fix this. We're Democrats. We know how to govern. Beautiful solution, but they didn't do that. Trump got the folks who were strategizing on the Clinton side decided to take a zero-sum approach. And a zero-sum approach means everything about you is wrong. And if everything about you is wrong, then there's nothing that you can promote that I can promote because you're wrong. That's what happened. So now the right wing has a secure border and the left wing, in perception, has an open border.
He never reported on it, so it made it seem like he did nothing. So not helpful in either direction. How about this? How about we are consistent for all politicians?
That'd be great.
And just honest to our viewers and our readers. Can I ask for that from mainstream media? Apparently a little bit too much to ask for. Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more.
I get it, Jink. I get it, but look, relative to the immigrants, I just think it's too late. I think it's too late, and I think it's going to be around 5 years for us to get to the point that everybody was in 2016. Okay, 2016, Americans were feeling pretty generous and pretty cool about the border, and the last 4 years have, it's really interesting because if you look at that poll where before 36%, only 36% in 2016, only 36% of us wanted all the undocumented people gone. That would mean that a bunch of Republicans were also like, well, if they're a dreamer in their hair, then that's got to be cool, right? I mean, we're America. Now you've got 57% of the constituency agreeing with that. And here's what I'll say. If you were out in 2016 and you didn't want every single undocumented person deported, but now you did, what would we say? We'd say that person has been what? Radicalized. My big fear in this Trump next 4 years is not Trump. And I keep trying to explain this to people. Trump wanted to make Operation Warp Speed, that thing where he came up with the vaccine in record time. He wanted to take Operation Warp Speed and spike the football and brag about it. And every time he would talk about it, his constituency booed him. He said, it's all right, it's okay. They booed him. And he stopped talking about it. Okay? Trump's people stand up to him if he's going against the core principles of their belief. We saw the same thing with the HB1 visa situation. They also disagreed with him. So this idea that all of Trump's people are just mindless zombies is once again a terrible miscalculation. These people are supporting this action from Mr. Trump because they believe it's going to keep them safe. They truly believe in it. Biden, here's my point. Biden has radicalized our country in the wrong direction relative to our mindset toward undocumented people and immigrants in general. Because he was so incompetent, and I mean that in the most technical way possible. I'm not trying to disrespect him, even though he's not our president anymore. It was horrendous, and it was such a horrendous thing that in spite of the fact that you had a media that was like whitewashing and trying to cover it up and all the rest of it, and you had a social media apparatus that would ban you if you said too many bad things about immigrants, in spite of all of that, the people had a massive switch and got radicalized. Because I'm telling you, I've been with the hardest, corest, meanest Republicans in the world. I promise you. If it's just Paula and her family and her dad works 2 jobs and she's out there grinding trying to figure out English, 9.9 out of 10 Republicans are going to say, man, look the other way. But it's just like other topics. When the thing gets stretched to credulity and money's tight, people are not going to be saying, look the other way anymore. That's what happened. That's what happened. Okay? So, it is what it is. This is only 4 years, but this is going to be an extremely consequential 4 years. I think everybody has an understanding of that. And I just hope, man, that our generation learns. These are lessons that we can learn. Okay? But this idea that everybody, we're just going to start labeling everybody. Anybody that doesn't listen to me is a Nazi. Anybody that doesn't listen to me is a communist. Blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah. Anybody that does... That kind of politics is dead. Because hopefully in our generation, that kind of politics is dead. Because what happens is, when you go out and you jump and you take the head off of people who disagree with you in the public sphere, or you shame them, or you silence them, it is going to push them further into their direction, especially as Americans, because none of us like to be told what to do. Nobody wants to be told what to do, and nobody wants to be told who to vote for, Mr. Obama. But you Negroes went and listened to him anyway. All right, guys. Terrible situation. Learn the lessons, okay? Brick said, I picked the right time to buy a camper and run off into the wilderness. I might have to do that. MAGA booed Trump multiple times for the vaccine between 22 and 23. He dialed it way back on the campaign. Yeah. Trump has a symbiotic relationship with his cult. A lot of people don't understand that about cult leaders. The dynamics of running a cult are not what people actually think. So a lot of times the cult leader is just as much of a victim as the cult is. But hey. All right, guys. Yeah, Ian's right. They're just going to keep quiet about it, and they're going to walk into the voting booth, and they're going to destroy your life. And we've got friends who are now learning that lesson in real time over 4 years. Unfortunately, maybe we'll apply a little bit more rationality instead of emotionalism to these topics. I'm not saying that emotionalism isn't important. It is. But we have to recognize and we have to mature and understand what the hell AOC is doing when she's taking those photo ops. And what's going on with Homegirl when she's choking up reading about the kids in cages. You have to understand that it is an influence campaign. It doesn't mean they're liars totally. It doesn't mean that in principle they don't believe in what they're doing. But they are trying to influence you through the gateway of your emotions. And Trump does the same. The issue is Trump is a lot better at finding which emotion is more dominant. Because self-interested emotions are always going to be more dominant than other interested emotions. In other words, jealousy is always going to affect you stronger than compassion. Because we're ego first. I see it very clearly with my children, especially the young ones. The smoke detector is not driving me crazy. I gotta say, I like this background you got going on here. It looks wicked good. Oh, good. Well, I'm glad. We just watched a movie together, so this is kind of the movie studio, and then I told everybody I was going to do a Middle America. So, I appreciate your guys' feedback. You guys seem to like it. So that's good. We might stay with it. But yeah, we just watched a movie. I probably should let my Middle Americans know when we're doing a movie night too. You guys can come through. Yeah, and that's the other thing is that the MAGA is clearly ahead. And I'm saying MAGA, not Republicans. MAGA is clearly ahead relative to tech as far as how to get people, how to reach people. They're up by a mile, and it's at the point now where it's like I'm listening to Democrats and they're like, we got to get on Joe Rogan next time. We got to do this. We got to do that. It's like, well, yeah, but you need to hire. You need to find a candidate that can work on a 3-hour Joe Rogan discussion. Kamala Harris obviously couldn't. Everybody's criticizing her for not going on Rogan. I'm not. She was going to go on Rogan. She wanted it to be an hour long with her pre-prepared statements. And Rogan says, no, we need to.
If she would have gone on Rogan, everybody would have been saying she shouldn't have even gone on there.
100%. 100%. It would have been a disaster. Mm-hmm. And everybody knows it. And unfortunately, they also had Biden. And we all know what would have happened if Biden would have went on Rogan. Like, I'm not trying to be funny. So, I don't know. I'm not going to say that. I just think that if you want good in the world on the left, you've got to now start rethinking strategically. Thank you, Kai, for the article about quantum animism. Joe Rogan sucks. I don't know why Joe Rogan sucks, but he seems to be pretty successful at what he does, and he seems to be able to wield a lot of influence. But yeah, Joe Rogan smoking it up with some Democratic guy, I think would have been great. It would have been great. But that's not what happened. Because the Democrats were still stuck in 1993, and we're doing all this door knocking and whatever, which is great. But as Van Jones said, they were coming to the door with their phone in their hand, right? Like, very, very good observation. And honestly, if I'm a Democrat, I am extremely terrified right now. Not because of Trump, but because if the Republicans can figure out a way to keep the economy good and keep the Israelis from massacring 8 million Gazans a day, and can wind down the Ukraine-Russia crisis, and then in 2028 you have a J.D. Vance Trump Jr. ticket, I think Democrats are going to have a serious problem. And if you thought life under Trump was going to be oppressive, J.D. Vance, to me, is way more dangerous and has way more capacity for actual destruction. Like the world that a lot of left-wing people feared that Trump was going to create will be created by J.D. Vance. And so if the economy does relatively good, and unfortunately all the, not the Build Back Better, but the infrastructure program, we're really going to start to see some of the real benefits of that in the next 2 years, okay? Trump's going to take all of that credit, okay? And so if the Democrats don't come up with a leader right now, you're in a lot of trouble. You guys saw Mr. Trump was always in the zeitgeist. He made sure that he remained in the zeitgeist so that when the 4 years came around, he just walked right back into it. The Democrats aren't setting anybody up. They're not conceding the party to anybody. There's no party leader. The closest they had was Gavin Newsom, and then this LA fire thing completely destroyed him. Like, it's over for him. So it's like, like the worst sign that the Democrats gave me was what happened recently with AOC. No, we can't have AOC have this very important position. Let's give it to the 75-year-old, no disrespect, with the cancer, with throat cancer. I mean, it's just like, okay, just business as usual. And then somebody goes, well, it was his turn. Okay, all right. Now look, people can say what they want about AOC. You can say what you want about AOC. But I promise you, if you're a leftist, that AOC as president is going to be better for you than J.D. Vance as president. All this Christian Taliban, blah, blah, blah. There's no Christian Taliban under Trump. There will be one under J.D. Vance. People have no idea. If you want to know, all you got to do is Google Douglas Wilson. Because that man is a student and a disciple of Douglas Wilson. You guys think that you guys haven't seen Nazism or fascism or whatever. J.D. Vance could quite possibly become an actual fascist dictator, honestly. Just because I know the mindset of Douglas Wilson and his disciples. All right, much love, all you beautiful people. I will check you beautiful people on the other side of the break. I appreciate the feedback about the set. It looks like I'm probably going to have to keep it this way because it looks like the people have spoken. So we got to find some way to bring the shrine over here, I think. But yeah, much love to everybody. Ryan says, if you've overstayed your visa, you've committed a crime in any country everywhere. No need to be a violent criminal. It's that simple. I understand that, Ryan. I understand that, and you are right in technical truth. And I would just say that those discussions would become less and less relevant if Mr. Biden projected that he was going after criminals, and if he let the American people know that he was deporting 300 whatever people a day. That'd have been great to know. But he didn't want to tell people that because he saw that as a weakness because you guys conceded all of the border security stuff to the Republicans. So there's no way you could talk to your constituents, say, yeah, I understand crime is terrible, Lake and Riley horrible. It's not relevant, though, because we are going after violent criminals. Now, keep in mind, you're more likely to be attacked by an American than you are an undocumented person. But be that as it may, we are 300 people a day. Shit, man. Biden, have a YouTube channel. You stand up a YouTube channel where you talk about one person a day that you deported. This guy was a rapist. This guy was a drug trafficker. This guy was trafficking a 3-year-old girl. All you got to do is put that up there. You'll have 50 examples of that shit. And the Republican talking point on that would have been moot. And you would have been able to do it using social media. And one or two of those are going to go mega viral. It's going to be the talk of the country. And you know that, legacy media is going to use it, blah, blah, blah. But they didn't do any of that because that would have then eliminated the Trump is a nasty, horrible, sociopathic, racist talk. And so this is where we end up. So hopefully Democrats can learn this lesson and stop with the sloganeering and start getting into real politics and real PR, real ones. I don't think The Handmaid's Tale could ever happen in America because we just have too many guns. And guns are an equalizer, and I do not imagine women would sit down and allow some shit like that to happen. I know mine wouldn't. I always talk about pacifism, blah, 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 but everybody trying to do that dumb shit with Sori. She's like, we all gonna die, bro. She wouldn't do it. There's too many guns in America. So I'm not worried about Handmaid's Tale. But remember, Handmaid's Tale is a dystopian, like it's almost apocalyptic. So just because it doesn't get as bad as Handmaid's Tale, it can still get really fucking bad. So, yeah, I don't know, guys. I don't know. They won't. They're getting paid good money to be losers. Well, I do think they get paid good money to be losers because of the lobbyists, right? That's the bad byproduct of lobbyists is because it's like, oh, you've just increased my personal GDP X, 10x whatever. If I lose an election, who cares? Who cares? It's less work for. I knew somebody one time who did security detail for somebody who had lost a major election, and you're not supposed to, but there was some small talk being made. It's like, yeah, how you feel about it, blah blah blah. And dude was like, man, are you kidding me? He's like, man, fuck these people, bro. He's like, man, he's like, none of y'all gonna hear from me for like a year. I'm gonna go to Cabo or whatever, or some other place I really couldn't pronounce, to be honest with you. He dropped him off at the airport, well, he had to go out and back with the, whatever, and then he ends up in the, but it was a real fascinating thing, because I'm like, this guy's not looking at this shit the way that everybody's looking at it. You got people on TV and they're like, oh, it's very mournful, and he was just like, he basically said, good luck. He said, fuck these people, good luck. And he was completely fine with it. And we saw this too with Biden. That first press conference he did when he had a little skip in his step after Kamala lost. Like, these people are not really looking at it like that, bro. It doesn't really hurt them like that. The last time that I thought a politician was really truly hurt over a loss, it was Trump, and you saw what he did. So, but other than that, a lot of them really don't care. They don't care, and that's one of the reasons I said that Bernie was actually more selfish than Biden, because he knew good and well that endorsing those people was the wrong thing to do for the country, but he didn't want to fight anymore. See what I'm saying? Elon had to take a break from sucking up to Netanyahu to throw up a Nazi sign, so TikTok had to take a break from supporting Hamas to call him a Nazi if he keeps up this Nazi stuff. Trudeau is going to have to honor him in Parliament. That's right. Shout out to Jussie 2 times with the blackface. Gang. Yeah, hey. I blame gravity. Yeah, Elon, you gotta be careful, bruh. You gotta be careful. You're gonna have Jussie 2 times go out there and bring you out to the shit, man. Have it done in The Hague. Do it in The Hague. Bring him to The Hague and give shit. You know what we should do? We should bring Elon to the Hague and give him a Nobel Peace Prize. Shout out to the homie. Oh man. All right. Cenk took $30 million off of a billionaire and tried to start his own faction. Yeah, the Justice Democrats thing. I think that was a good use of the money, man. Like, I think, I'm not a Democrat, but like, I perceive Cenk to be a pragmatist. I don't believe in the new Cenk, as in like, that's who he is from his heart. He's going around calling everybody brother, he's trying to be the new Joe Rogan. I'm not buying it. To me, it just looks like a very practical and wise political maneuver. And I'm not mad at practical and wise political maneuvers, but it's not coming from his soul, right? All right, I got to get out of here. Much love to all you beautiful people. I blame gravity in this bitch. Bricktown Media, check them out. We will put the link to Bricktown's thingamajiggy in the descriptions. Go check them out. I'm telling you, there's a lot of bullshit going on in the world. You guys hear all the bullshit from me. It's good to be able to just kind of hang out a little bit and chill and hear it from another perspective. See what I'm saying? Yeah, I'm out of here. Vin out. Love your neighbor. Take care of each other. Middle America, we are the media.